Welcome to Refiner's Fire, here with young Catholic professionals, where we talk about how God is refining us, especially through our work. My name is Peter Blute. I'm the executive director here at YCP, and I am joined today by my great friend, mentor, co-worker in the vineyard, Jennifer Baugh, YCP's founder and executive director. So glad to have you here.
Thanks, Peter. It's so fun to be here. It's awesome to do this with you and to keep doing it. Let's see where God takes us.
Yeah. So, Jen, you and I have been working on and the apostolates actually worked on us as well for 11 years together. But we are celebrating YCP's 15th anniversary as an organization, just starting out here as a local ministry in Dallas, Texas, which is where we are now. We're here at our headquarters in Dallas, and actually here in this moment, we're in the Beatitudes studio that we share with them, or they share with us, I guess is a better way to put it. So if you haven't seen them before, check out the Beatitudes. They do great work and are friends of YCP. But 15 years, 2010, is when this all got started, this work that you had envisioned, right? And so to start off, maybe you could just take us back to the beginning. Where were you? What was going through your mind? What was happening in your life when you first kind of came upon this idea through the Holy Spirit to start Young Catholic Professionals?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an incredible milestone to be here 15 years in, and I think it's great to celebrate because it is a significant amount of time, and also just to thank God for His incredible intervention to make this apostolate come to be. So I'm so thankful to look back. 15 years ago, I was actually in a bit of a difficult moment in my life. Like so many of the young people we serve, I was in between grad school and a consulting job and going through a time in my life that it was kind of challenging. I was alone in a new city. I had little clarity about my purpose and direction. I was anxious about finding a spouse and really didn't have a sense of God's love and plan for me. And, it was in the lowest moment of all this turmoil that I listened to the little voice urging me to find deeper meaning through my Catholic faith. Without going into all the details, YCP was born in this moment, and God's grace really equipped me to pursue a path less traveled by and build an apostolate to serve young Catholics. So it's really been a blessed journey, and I'm in awe of where the ministry is today.
Yeah, it's such an amazing story, and also, I've just always appreciated as we've become close friends the openness that you have, right, to try to discern where God is calling you. And I learned that from you in the earliest days when you've really been a spiritual mentor to me, right? But I think that openness is so important. And I just think about, 15 years of stories that we've heard,
Yes.
right, of young people who are in much the same position that you were and I was, in my early 20s.
Yes.
This time of discernment, this time of kind of grappling with what am I called to, who am I called to do it with, where am I called to live and work, and what is my spiritual life like, what should it be like, right? What is God calling me to? And so I imagine many of our members are resonating with that story of the birth of YCP coming out of some of that grappling with anxiety and God's will for our life. But what was it? So we, you start to develop this idea, right? And you develop some of the programs and the models, and then you start hosting events. What were those earliest days like when you're just hosting these? I think they were once or twice a month.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about those early days of YCP.
Oh, I look back at them so fondly. I mean, at the time they were full, really just giving my heart and soul to this, but it was so creative, coming up with new ideas, each event, approaching it, as if it was the first and the last, giving it everything, the entire YCP existed in the back of my Jetta. But it was so fun just enlisting people to help. And, I remember one guy after one of our events just said, how can I get more of this? Like he couldn't get enough. So, just meeting incredible people, hearing people's ideas, seeing that there was a thirst. Really, I think, what struck me is just that, when you're in your 20s and 30s, it's a time of so much sort of enthusiasm for life, but it can often be misguided and misdirected, and it's almost like people are searching for a little bit of a path or pointing in the right direction. And so I think, the concept of a Catholic apostolate that could help them be better professionals and grow in their spiritual life and connect them with each other to find meaning and friendship. It was almost like I was giving them a gift. And I guess in a way I was through God. So, the early years were just full of excitement, adventure, notes, brainstorming, you and I in our famous conference room, working on things together. It was a blast. But I also want to hear about you in the early years, because you joined me early on in the effort.
That's right.
And what do you attribute this 15-year marker to? What do you think was a big reason for all the growth that we would experience?
Yeah, well, I think you touched on it as purpose, right? I think that's what a big part of what I was missing in my life when I found YCP back in 2013 when I met you at that happy hour that night in October. And I was really searching for something kind of beyond myself, not really engaged in my faith, and desiring to like you said, have more direction. Yeah. Have a deeper spiritual life, but not quite knowing how to get there. And so for me, I think the first thing was the people that I met, right? There was that connection that happened when I was really pretty alone. I felt a pretty deep-seated sense of isolation. And it was the connection with people starting that night that sent me on this road, right? And you were one of those key connections, right? And you painted this vision. I remember, I don't remember exactly what you said, but I remember how I felt after the conversation. And you were talking about how YCP could be all over the world and that this was going to change people's lives because it had changed yours, right? And there had been a couple of years now and you'd seen how this had momentum. So to get back to your question, I think the people first is what drew me in. People who I could feel like I was standing shoulder to shoulder with, but they weren't all at the exact same place as me. Some were a little further in their spiritual life. Some were maybe even struggling with it a little bit more than I was. But all of us had a sense of the direction we generally wanted to go and the fact that we didn't quite know how to get there. And I think that's still true today. That through the friends that people meet, the connections with peers, through the role models, that I learned so much from in the earliest years of my involvement with YCP that I think has led to me being a better father, a better husband, a better coworker, a better leader of this apostolate now, a better friend, a better parishioner, right? All of these things that YCP gave me because I learned them from people who wanted to understand their direction and to maybe share in that struggle with people around them.
We need reference points. You know, there's, a beautiful quote from Pope Emeritus Benedict about life being like a dark and stormy voyage on a rough sea. And, we need those lights, which are the people that are good around us to help us navigate the journey. Of course, the true light is Christ, but we need lights close by. And that's why we need each other. Friends become a reference point and they become an anchor to help you remember who you are and who we are ultimately are, we're children of God. And, I think it's so easy to forget that in the everyday, grind, especially in this world we live in that is so counter to faith. And so to have people that serve as reminders and can actually accompany us on this epic journey to heaven is amazing. And like you said, Peter, I'm profoundly grateful for you, and just the role that you've played in my life. This 15-year anniversary would not have happened without you. And, it is amazing to think of, just the journey. Obviously, YCP is an apostolate, that has gotten to this point because of so many people. Just you think of all the prayers, that have gotten us here. My mom's had the Carmelites in Colorado cloistered praying for us
For
all these years,
yeah,
all of our,
yeah.
benefactors and members. But also it is nice to think about, our friendship and how that I think has contributed to the growth of
Yeah.
YCP, because we never really had all the answers, but I think we had a desire to figure it out together
Right.
and not to give up.
Yeah. Yeah, and just how our families have grown together. I mean, we both started at
Yeah.
YCP, single,
Yeah.
wanting, feeling we were called to marriage, and now to be here, married, four kids, and I'm right there in a
Yeah.
couple of months
Yeah.
with four, and it's just amazing, and
It is.
being each other's godparents and
It
being
is.
spiritually involved in each other's families beyond just the friendship and the fun that we have together, and
Yes.
and getting to work on this great mission.
It is a blessing.
Alongside one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I joined in 2014. Then you hired me as the second full-time,
Yeah.
the first full-time employee after you. So I mean, we were just in there like trying to figure it out, right? What would it look like if Dallas continued to grow?
Yeah.
And then there was this moment where there started to be interest outside of
Yes.
Dallas. So
Yes.
when did you have a sense that this was something that could go beyond a local or even like a North Texas kind of presence?
Yeah. You remember the famous business plan. So actually starting YCP, I did write a business plan because I had just come
I love it.
from
I refer
grad
to
school.
it not infrequently because I think it's so
Yeah.
cool how much of it has come true.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the plan, we did talk about, national and international expansion. So, I mean, it was definitely something that I thought was possible, but I think it's only when you see it actually unfold before your eyes, that's when it really became real. So I think when we launched our first chapter outside of Texas, I believe it was YCP Denver was our fifth chapter. That was in 2015. That was spectacular. And then I think what really, sort of hit it home for me that this was a national movement was the launch of our Chicago chapter.
Yeah.
So that was chapter 9, and that was in 2016. So there were over 500 people that came to that launch event.
That was
I'll never
crazy.
forget it.
Yeah.
We actually had to turn people away.
Yeah, we were like breaking fire code.
Exactly. And, what was so amazing is probably about 5 or 6 people separately came up to me and said that they had been part of YCP in Dallas.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, their careers or whatever their life journey was brought them to Chicago. And they expressed profound gratitude and excitement that they could continue their YCP journey in another city in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so, it is true. Young people are moving, and we're seeing that now where we've had people who have actually been part of multiple chapters.
That's how many of our
yeah.
chapters have started, is because of members moving to a new city.
That's right.
Or telling
Yeah.
their friends about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was
so amazing.
spectacular.
500 people. It's just unbelievable to see how it's grown. And I was just in Detroit speaking
Yes.
at our chapter last week, and just in the connectedness of YCP. In that vein, there was a member there who's telling me he came to our conference last year, and he met all these people from cities across the country.
Wow.
And he now hosts them every time they come through Detroit. And he was listing off all
amazing.
these cities: Chicago, San Diego,
Wow.
all of these people, Philadelphia, Dallas, all of these friends he now has across the country. And when they come through Detroit, he gets together with them, and he's developed these friendships, even though he only sees them every year at the conference, and then
That's
maybe
amazing.
one time in between for travel for work. And so I think that's such a foundational part of life,
Yes.
is living in community with one
Oh,
another.
yes.
And for a highly mobile, often disconnected generation, I mean, certainly we as millennials were, and now Gen Z, I think some of that has gotten even more challenging. That ability to just have like-minded people that are striving to get to heaven,
Yes,
right? And trying to
yes.
figure out the way,
Yes.
and also desiring to do really good work along the way too,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Do work excellently
Yes.
and understand why that has major implications for our faith,
Yes.
right?
People often ask, what sets YCP apart. And, I said, I would say that it's a community, but not just any kind of community. It's a community that challenges us to a higher standard of virtue. And I think that's why the friendships are so meaningful, is that there is a shared connection in our faith. And there's also a desire to grow in holiness and to, that famous St. Catherine of Siena quote, "Be who God meant you to be and you'll set the world on fire."
Right.
Through humility and through all the virtues. But, I think that's a powerful one these days of really, we think of our patron, St. Joseph, through that sense that, he must increase and I must decrease. Like St. John the Baptist says, we can actually change the culture through that focus on Christ, working in witness for Christ. And so I think that's what makes such a richness to the friendships, is that there's not a sense of kind of ego to it or posturing or anything like that. There's really almost a stripping down and saying, let's get to the essential of why we're here.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that humility has got to be the foundation of so much of our work, right? That we know we don't have it all figured out, and we need Christ and we need each other, which I think is not often the message that we hear in the world, right? You can go it alone.
Yes.
It's you, right?
Yes.
And you can sort of create whatever you need, right? But we're not meant to grow. It's hard to grow in isolation, I think.
It is. It really is. So, thinking of your kind of journey with YCP as well, I mean, we definitely had some ups and downs together along the road.
Yeah.
And at YCP, we're a fan of those because we believe they make us stronger.
They refine us.
Yes, exactly. What kept you with YCP all those years? And
yeah, well, it started off with a lot of passion but uncertainty, I think, volunteering for the organization and then being invited to join you, on the team. And my volunteer work had already started creeping into the job I had at the time. And so it was a bit of a no-brainer to kind of just jump, right? And I had so much trust in you as the leader and a growing mentor of mine in those earliest days. And then I think it became something where I really was actually refining a professional skill set too.
Yes.
And I've shared this with you, but I always had this kind of entrepreneurial interest, right?
Yeah.
And high school and college, I thought I'm going to start a business, right? I'm going to start something from scratch. But what I came to realize is that I was getting to build something,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so I was getting to kind of flex a lot of those muscles of creativity and innovation and just how to just try things, and then in that kind of agile way be able to pivot and try something else and get to work in almost every single part of the business, right? As we were developing this very much a business and drawing on a lot of what works in the for-profit world, but then applying it in a setting where we were building this faith-driven mission, this apostolate, this movement that it has now become. And so weaving those two things together has also just been fun and interesting. Like I love the mission, but I think the work itself, the business itself, I think is really interesting.
Yes.
So I think in the earliest days I was also growing professionally.
Yeah.
I still am now, but that really stood out to me that it wasn't just I got to work in a faith-based organization.
Yes.
I was really becoming a better professional because of it too.
Yes. I think there's always been that calling that we shared to do things as well as we possibly could for God's glory. I just think back to, an event in 2011 where we hosted Tom Horton, who at the time was the head of American Airlines. And I remember people being amazed that we were able to get someone of his caliber to our event. And I think it was sort of an indicator externally that, this is the level that we're going to have. Not that matters always, the professional title, but just the sense that we are going to approach this ministry with as much dedication and as much diligence as we would with any work, project or anything like that. That we were going to give this our very, very best, and because it was that important. And I also remember that he had a particular speech that so kind of resonated with our mission. He said, in this age of extreme political correctness, many people say that faith and business don't mix. And here he is the head of American saying, I couldn't disagree more. Faith informs every single action of every single moment. Otherwise it's just moral relativism. He said, Catholics, we have a huge responsibility, and that starts with what we do every single day. Yeah. So I think to hear this person, so beautifully articulate this calling that we have to live our faith boldly in the world. I think that was really kind of eye-opening for people. And I think what's been really neat is in the 15 years, we really haven't strayed from that original purpose and sort of that simplicity. And so while we've been very agile with sort of adapting and learning from mistakes, I think we've always kind of stuck to that simple message and that simple calling. And I think that's been part of YCP's growth too.
Yeah, I think it's served YCP well
Yes.
to just stick to that one thing, faith and work. How do those come together?
Yes.
And even 15 years later now, like there are now more people talking about why work matters than I think in those early days. But to be able to contribute here across the U.S. now to that message, right, in a major way is so amazing,
It is.
right? And the connecting of the generations too.
Yes.
I think has been so powerful. But yeah, I remember too that it has not been without its challenges, right? I mean, you brought that up, but I remember this was 17, 18. I think I had just gotten married maybe. And I had this moment where we had this conversation where another organization had approached me to explore this job, and I felt like I was at sort of a crossroads, right?
Yeah.
And there was some challenges, right? You and I were working through some things at the time, and I felt like I had to pursue that. And, you and I talked about that. And so I pursued that interview process. But during that, I was just like, man, I was like writing out pros and cons. And I had like all these sheets of paper. But I think what it forced me to do, I say forced me, I entered into it willingly. I knew I had to do this, but it was a moment where I got to really define why I care about working here, why I care about this mission, why I care about, not just being friends, because we would have remained friends, but working on this together, with you. And so I came out of that. Ultimately, I decided to pull out of that process, and I came out of that with so much more clarity. This moment of saying, I know exactly why I'm here, and that I do feel that God is calling me to stay here and continue to help build. And I think those moments are so important in our life that we recognize them and then try and just pray through that, right? Stay deeply connected to our Lord in that process. But I had to be there to get here. And it's obviously easy to look back on and see how this all made sense. But that was definitely a really tough moment, right? I think it was tough for me. It was tough for us, and the ministry was taking off. And but it's just amazing to look back and see how far we've come since then, right?
Oh, and I think you said it very well that, to do something worthwhile is not going to be easy, right?
Exactly.
But I think the sense that just to give it our best, and that doesn't mean that we're always going to even do the right thing, but I think, to really do things with our whole heart. And I think sadly, a lot of times in this age today, there's a tendency to sort of step back and observe the world and potentially not engage. And what I like about your story there is that you were kind of grappling with your decision, but you were really giving it your all, and so I think it's a good lesson to all of us is that, we have to be fully present. We can't disengage when times get hard. We have to, of course, turn to prayer, which is what you did, but also, rely on our friendships and perhaps pursue the path that is maybe harder, which, in many ways, it hasn't been an easy journey, even since then with YCP. We had to go through the pandemic together, which,
that was just wild.
I know. And it's amazing because a lot of, organizations like ours that had involved in-person meetings, totally folded. But, I think that's a good story that speaks to kind of our creative approach and our friendship, our teamwork, because we stepped back and we really heard from our members that a lot of people were getting laid off.
Right.
A lot of people were getting laid off.
That.
And we felt a lot of compassion. So we said, is there something that we can do? We obviously can't pay a lot of money, but we need a lot of help. We have projects. So we ended up sending a message to our base saying, if you all want to work for YCP on a very short-term basis, we'll interview you. We ended up hiring 17 contract workers. We put together individual projects for each of them, really customized based on their talents and their interests. And these people were so grateful for this opportunity. It really, I think, indicated to us that work is so much more than a paycheck, that there is that deeper meaning that comes with being able to contribute and use our gifts for God's glory. So I think that was really meaningful. And then also an awesome thing that came out of that hard time was the creation of the chapter in a box.
Yeah, chapter in a box. That's right.
You remember?
So cool.
Yeah,
because we were taking, so that was like 2019, 2020, 2021. So we were taking the first 10 years of experience with YCP and all the work that had been poured into it to refine just the best practices, right? All the ins and outs of running a chapter. And then to take that and say, what's the next phase of that going to look like? And so one of the contractors that we met then helped lead that effort to develop this chapter in a box, which is now the toolkit that every chapter across the country uses to run their YCP chapters. And we continue to update and improve those. But I remember having that conversation. We were talking about a game. Like, how do we, what's the motif or the style, right? And we were just brainstorming, like, how do we turn this into something that's practical and very usable, but also try and kind of keep it fun and interesting still. And I think that's a big part of it. I mean, I've learned that from you so much, is like the importance of having fun along the way. And I think that was one of those moments where it's just fun to brainstorm. It was this is a very business problem we're tackling.
Yes.
But also I think we learned a lot. We got to try some new things. I remember developing the artwork for the saint cards.
Yes.
Because each of the roles on our chapter teams have a saint, a patron saint associated with those roles. And Josh, who was a long time, he joined YCP, I think, about when I did years ago. And he was able to come back now and serve as our artist to actually develop from scratch these images of the saints. And so all these people that participate in YCP and then end up coming back and serving in so many other ways. I think that's such a beautiful fruit of this work, right, of this community.
Well, because, young people have so much to give. It's like there's so much love in their hearts, and that love can take the form of beautiful projects and work for God. And, so I think that's what's cool too is, yes, we can come together and we can encourage each other and remind each other to be more faithful. But I think there's also this challenge to do something with your life, and it doesn't just have to be, the obvious thing. It could be the way you approach your work every day and sort of, do you give it sort of 50% or 70%, or do you actually give it your best?
Go all in.
For God.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, because God has given you these amazing talents and it can serve and, serve your coworkers, serve your manager, and serve your clients. And actually, you serve yourself when you're fruitful like that. You feel fully alive.
Right.
So I think that's what's neat to me is that there's always that challenge. And I think we want that to be part of YCP forever. Is yes, there's the sense of gratitude. We're so thankful to be together. But now let's do something.
Yeah. Take action.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so we're here 15 years now into YCP. We're in 40 of the 50 largest cities in the country. We have people that have reached out to us from all over the world who we're trying to prudently decide how YCP can continue to grow, but also feeling like, there's kind of a moment that we're in when YCP is on fire with the Holy Spirit, and we seem to be continuing to be pushed forward, right? So what do you see in the next, years, decade plus? Where do you think we'll be able to take YCP as we continue to grow it?
I think the future is so bright. You hear a little bit about our story here and how the two of us coming together have kind of sparked this really creative, awesome thing for God. But you think of all of the people in our network now that if they come together in these really unique ways, what they can do for their parishes, for their workplaces. Can they start businesses? Can they start apostolates? This is already happening organically with YCP. And I'm just really excited because I think, there's really going to be an effort to even be more intentional with it, to pour fuel on that and just let the fire burn.
Yeah.
And just let our our amazing members and our awesome young Catholics and chaplains and mentors, and just see what happens when we come together with a sense of zeal for the Lord. It's really exciting. How about you? Because, I really see the Holy Spirit kind of guiding you in a really amazing way right now and at the helm of YCP. Maybe you could just reflect a little bit like on your greatest accomplishment, over the 15 years, and then what are you most excited about for the future?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's one kind of greatest accomplishment. To me, it's almost been like a series of small wins that have stacked up over a very long time. And I think there's something to be said for getting the chance to work on something so directly for so long. But I think one of the things that I think we can be really proud of is that we have 750 volunteers that are really the boots on the ground running these chapters. And we worked so hard in the early days to really have that be, as much of a fulfilling, meaningful investment of their time, but also knowing that this is an offering, right? It's a way to serve, like in the truest, deepest sense of serving your fellow man. But I think just the fact that we've been able to grow so quickly and develop this model that is engaging volunteers in this way, I think is really impressive.
It is.
And I think it's been the main reason that YCP has been able to grow so quickly into all these cities now, so that we can be truly a nationwide, today at least, a nationwide network, and all these people moving around all the time. Last time I sat in this studio, I was talking to Rebecca Solomon from Boston, who's been involved with YCP for many, many years. She was here for work, right? Gets to work with us for the day on the podcast, been involved for many years. And I love what you're saying, though, about that connectedness that's going to come, that's going to bear more fruit.
Yes.
Right? And I think these volunteers, like how many of them have met and gotten married? Like it's a beautiful
amazing.
fruit,
It's
right?
amazing.
That has come from more Catholics coming together, and that 1%, you bounce off of people and that 1% difference in their life.
Yes.
And then you compound that out over a decade, which we now have, we can trace back to where people met and started interacting through YCP and where they are today. And they have told us how different that trajectory of their life was, right? And so I think as I look forward, it's hard not to just think about the mothers and fathers and the husbands and wives that are going to now be imparting the faith, who came up through YCP, who are now going to be imparting the faith on their kids. And I mean, I know me personally, like I'm so much more well-equipped. Still not great at it, but I'm so much more well-equipped now, especially with the people that I've now been able to wrap myself around. And most of those have come through YCP. Almost every one of them I can trace back to some first meeting through YCP. And so I think about just the impact to the next generation. Within 10 years, we're going to have the second generation of YCP members coming. Our earliest members' kids are going to be now coming to YCP. And that is just, amazing. I think, profoundly exciting.
It is.
And so I think it will transform. I mean, it already is transforming society, but I think you extrapolate it out and you start to think about YCP, growing outside the U.S. I mean, I think of Daniel in Australia, who traveled all the way across the world to come to our conference this year, and has already made a trip back to the U.S. again, and went out of his way to go to a YCP New Orleans event a couple of weeks ago. Like the potential here to reach new people, to deepen the connections between the people once they're here, and then the ripple effects that are going to come out of that. I mean, I don't think we can even know. We can even quite envision the life-changing potential.
It's so true. I mean, you look at just the world and, everything out there is trying to pull us as people apart from each other, and you look at this and how many people it's bringing together and bringing together for a purpose, for a higher calling. And I mean, it really is, it's profound. And like you said, Peter, I mean, I think the next 15 years are probably going to be even more exciting. It's awesome, and we just have to continue to thank God every day and kind of be simple with it, because that's how we started.
Yeah.
Just be simple, work really hard, and have fun.
Amen. Amen. Well, here's to 15 years, into the next 15 years, and just being on this great adventure with you has been such a gift.
It really has been.
I can't wait to see what the future is going to hold for YCP.
St. Joseph the Worker.
Pray for us. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time on Refiner's Fire.